Aloha to you and good morning, Hawaii, and thanks for joining us here at 5:49. Well, when you think of NASA, you probably think of the future of space exploration, but today NASA is helping us celebrate the planet under our feet, Earth Day. NASA has a whole fleet of missions looking down at Earth to help us learn more about it. And here to celebrate Earth Day with us is NASA expert, Dr. Matt Rodell. He's a NASA Earth Scientist. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Good morning. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. You know, we've got a lot to talk about today. We've been talking about volunteer work, and we've been celebrating air quality here in Hawaii. And, you know, when we think about NASA, people probably immediately think of space exploration. What is NASA's connection to Earth Day?
Yeah, well, that's right. Believe it or not, one of NASA's key missions is launching satellites to observe our home planet. So right now we've got 20 satellites up in orbit around the Earth, looking down, making measurements of all sorts of things related to weather, climate, water resources, you name it. So, so we have a really unique vantage point from space. If you can just imagine, you know, 70 years ago, before there were satellites, imagine trying to predict where a storm was or when it was going to hit the Hawaiian Islands. You know, it'd be almost impossible. But with our satellite observations, we can do that now and many other things.
52 years into Earth Day, we've learned a lot about our planet. What is going on here on Earth?
Oh, so many things. Well, you know, as you know, the climate is changing, and NASA's making important observations of that climate change. We're one of the two agencies that measure the health of the planet every year and how the temperature has changed. But we do so many other things like how does that affect sea level rise, for example? So we can measure the amount of ice melting from the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets, which contributes to sea level rise. And then the ocean warming also contributes about half of that sea level rise. We do things like measuring the health of crops. We monitor fires around the world. Air quality is another thing that you mentioned. All of these things are changing in one way or another, related to direct human impacts, related to climate change, and it would be nearly impossible to make measurements all around the world, everywhere, all the time, without satellite observations.
Well, you mentioned some key words that we're very familiar with here in Hawaii. You talk about sea level rise, obviously concern of coastal erosion here in our island home, and ocean temperatures, of course, affecting our sea life that surrounds us here. What are some of the prominent observations that NASA has made, particularly when it comes to the oceans?
Yeah, so we have, I mentioned sea level rise. That's one of the key things. I'm going to mention that we're currently building a new satellite called PACE, which is going to measure ocean color, which can then be used to understand plumes of algae and other types of biologic growth. That's going to be an exciting mission coming up in the next couple of years. But we do so many other things. We can measure the salinity of the ocean. We can measure, you think of sea level rise, it's not uniform. It actually rises at different rates in different parts of the world. That's something we can measure. So yeah, we're heavily involved in the oceanic part of the earth science.
Well, I imagine there at NASA you have the best view possible of Earth, and I know that there are a number of Earth missions, as Earth science missions, as you mentioned earlier in the interview. Is there anything else that you're excited about that you can share with us today? Maybe give us a heads up on some cool new science projects that NASA's working on?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many things, but just real quick, the Landsat 9, the 9th in the Landsat series, launched last September. It makes imagery of the Earth, and so now we have a 50-year time series of imagery of the Earth. And if you go to the Google Earth Engine time lapse, you can see anywhere on Earth how the Earth has been changing. So you could zoom in on your home neighborhood in Hawaii and just see how that's changed over time, for example. That's one exciting example. I'll also mention that later this year, the SWAT mission is going to launch, and the SWAT mission is going to measure surface water and river flows, which is something that we can't do on the ground everywhere on Earth. SWAT's going to solve that problem and give us information on river discharge into the oceans. Just a couple of great examples that I'm really excited about myself.
A lot of fascinating science and earth science to learn about here in the coming months and years. Dr. Reed, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people go and learn more about some of the research that you're talking about and maybe see some of the results and some of the images?
Yeah, an easy way is to just go to www.nasa.gov/Earth Day. You can find all sorts of educational materials and links to the things that we do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matt Rodell, joining us here from NASA to talk about Earth Day and, of course, the spectacular view of Earth from outer space. It's great talking with you.